Hello! How's everyone? Welcome to the Java Code Camp. If you like coding, you're in the right place. My name is Matias Salerno. I am your host and your Java Code Camp coach. I am a subject matter expert here at Globant, and over the last 4 weeks, we have been doing a series of um, episodes where we have been learning about how to refactor and applying different special techniques for refactoring. So we have seen so many things over these couple of days. We've seen how to test an application that doesn't have any tests and it's a legacy application, so it's hard to get into it. We also have been seeing how to do solid refactoring, so using the solid principles to guide us in our refactoring of the code. We've seen also how to do domain-driven design refactoring, so using these principles as well to do the refactoring. And now we're going to put it all together into one very challenging piece of code. So we're going to be sharing with you the code, which is in the GitHub repository. And as always, I hope you have enjoyed this series, and hopefully this is not the last series that we have. We'll have many more. So let's start talking a little bit of what we're going to do today. So I'm going to um, share my screen here, and yes, we're going to be putting everything together. So we'll just have a brief recap of everything we've seen during these couple of sessions. And remember, if you haven't seen the last sessions, they are all available in YouTube for you to look as many times as you want. So you can watch it and rewatch it and practice. You also have the GitHub repositories where you can download the code and practice as much as you want, and you can even try things that we haven't tried in our exercises. Um, and also, at the end of the talk of this session, we will have we will share with you information about Globant careers, and also we will share with you a feedback form, which would be awesome if you can fill, because it will help us a lot in understanding what we have to do, how we have to improve, what things you liked, what things you didn't like, and so on. All right, so let's do a recap. So one of the things that we've seen during this last couple of days is we've talked about the solid principles, and these solid principles, we've seen the single responsibility principle, the open close principle, and all of these principles we've used in order to do refactoring. So in this episode, we're also going to be using two of these principles, mostly the single responsibility principle, the open close principle, the interface segregation as well. We'll see how all these principles are going to be helping us in today's episode. Another thing, and I cannot find the slide for it now, but another thing that we saw in the first episode was how do we test an application that is legacy and it doesn't have many tests, and we want to refactor it and we want to add new features on it as well, but we don't know if we can touch it. So how do we do that? How do we do that? And we introduce the library called test containers that was really helpful to create a containerized version of MySQL and all the dependencies of the application. And in this case, we will also be using test containers for our test. And then we also spoke about domain-driven design, or DDD, and how we can use the principles of domain-driven design in our coding for refactoring. Because refactoring is also the art of making our code better. It's a way of making our code more reusable, more easy to understand, and so on. So we will be using as well some of the principles here, like the repositories principle, the ubiquitous language. So we're going to try and impose the language that we need to use in our tutorial. And so if we move forward, I'm going to be talking about our tutorial today, because our tutorial today is a very interesting application. It's an old application, and it was used by some shops to do a loyalty program, right? So those programs where you buy things on a shop, and then or in a store, and then you get points, and you can redeem those points to get discounts, so that you can so that you get the customer a reward for being loyal, a loyal customer, and because they come back. And this is an old program, so it's using very old technology. For example, so what we have in this application is the shops, the stores, they would send all the transactions that the users were making, and they would put those transactions into an SFTP server. For those of you who don't know what an SFTP server is, it's basically an application that helps you manage the disk of a computer or any server, right? So if you install an SFTP server in your laptop, you will be able to see all the files, and you'll be able to add new files on it. So if you install an SFTP server into a remote server, then you will be able to send files to that server, and you will be able to send them securely. So SFTP servers have users and passwords and all that, so you can manage the access to the files. So that's the whole point of having SFTP. It's a secure way of sharing files between applications. It's a null way. You will see this in the banking industry, in the airline industry, and in many other many industries that have been around for a long time. They would still use this technology, though they are moving away from it, because it's an old technology that doesn't allow for real-time operations. So, for example, now, so the shops, the stores would send the transactions into the server and put them into a file, and then there is a Java program that is a schedule that runs every day, and it will process the transactions, and based on the transactions, it will create a new it will create points for the user. And if the user has crossed any sort of threshold between the time that they have been storing those points, so they have a 2-month time for storing the points, and if the 2 months are over, then the points are redeemed, and you get rewards. So, for example, a discount of 5 or 10 or 15%, depending on how many points you accumulated over those 2 years, those 2 months. Sorry. All right. So this is the application that we have, and I'm going to show you now what we want to do with this application. So this is our target application. Now customers will go to the stores, and the stores will send to our application using REST APIs customer transactions. So this will be a live process. So this will happen in real time. if the store has a transaction, that transaction will go directly to our application through a REST API. And also, we will add in our we will also have a REST API for customers to redeem their own rewards. So in the old application, the customer needed to wait for 2 months until the reward was automatically redeemed. But in this case, or the points were redeemed. But in this case, we're going to change it so that they can do the redemption immediately in real time. That is really cool. And to do that, we're going to put another REST API on top of this, which can be used by a mobile application or by a web browser. So usually mobile applications and web browsers cannot send things through SFTP, because SFTP is not a protocol that mobile uses in general. So to do this, we're going to use HTTP, and we're going to use a REST API. And everything is stored in MySQL, right? So the rewards will be created in MySQL and so on. That doesn't change because we also had rewards in MySQL in the old case. All right. So that's what we're going to do. There's a lot of work already done. So if you have downloaded the code, if you have cloned the code, you will see this. Let's take a look at all the code, and we'll see this project. And this project will have this service. This is the main service, the loyalty points service, which has this giant method. Like we want to the kind of methods that we want to tear apart and never see again. But we want to refactor it into a better thing, because this is key. We need to refactor it because we want to add new functionality, and this kind of code doesn't allow for new functionality. And you will see that I'm going to be moving things very fast, because this is a long refactoring. I mean, it's not huge. It's not like you cannot do it in a couple of hours, but I'm going to be moving really fast because there are things that are already done, but I want to show you at least what are those things. And then we also have a test for this class. So this class, I already created a test called the loyalty points service test. And so this test basically is testing 3 different scenarios. A scenario where the user doesn't have any points in the database, and we send a file with only this content. So the file that we send has the user ID and the amount of points that the user has been awarded. It's very simple. And it could be multiple files. Sorry, it could be multiple, not files. How do you say it? It could be multiple users, so multiple customers. So we have a case. We don't have any case for multiple customers. All right, but we can have multiple customers. So we can have here 3 and 40, for example. So that's the file content. Okay. And so the user ID and then the amount of points. So we want to process that. So we send it, and the result is the reward. So how is the reward that the user has won, if there is any? Because it could be the case that there was no reward at all, because the users may not have any reward. The tricky part here is that we have MySQL and we have the SFTP server. So how do we work around all that? With test containers, our old good friend test containers is going to help us. So we created a container for MySQL, and we created a container for an SFTP server. So basically, this allows us to create an actual SFTP server in our laptop by using Docker. This is amazing. And what we do in our test, I created also a class called SFTP utils, and this will upload the file into the SFTP. So this is emulating being the store, right? So the store will upload this file, and then we, over time, when the time comes, the process will start. It will download the file here. It will download the file, and it will start processing, right? So I can run all the tests just to show you that everything is running. And while we do that, let's see. I'm just checking if there are any questions or anything like that. Hi everyone. I'm reading the comments. And all right. So let's see. Everything should be running. In the meantime, while everything runs, let's just take a look at the code, and you will see very, very upsetting things here. We'll see, for example, of course, this class, we can, now that we know what the principles are for refactoring and all that, we can immediately tell that this class does not consider any solid principles at all. So there is SFTP reading in the class. Then there is what else? Yeah, SFTP, all this. After all this, we have also prepare statement. So basically, we're going to the database. And after the database, we do what else? We start preparing the updates for the database, and in here we have some business logic, I guess. So in here we get data from the database. All right, so here's where we are actually seeing if we redeem if we are redeeming any of the work of the points. So if the points are between 150 and 300 and date is equal to blah blah, so then the reward is this, and the points go to 0, right? Because if you redeem your points, then you have 0 rewards. All right, the tests are done and everything is working. So that's a good sign. We need to make sure that we don't break any of these tests in our refactoring. So then what else? If the reward was null, if the reward is not null, then add it to the list of rewards and add it to the batch so that it can be updated. So this is the insert batch, so that we update the database. And in here, the same goes for the points. We're updating the points that we're going to insert, the new ones. So there could be a customer that didn't have any points in the database, so we need to create a new record for that customer. Right. So everything is good. Okay. This is good. So this is a huge mess, and what we're going to do is start by applying some of the basic principles. So any of you have any idea what to do here? I would say we should probably get the stuff SFTP out of this, right? Because this is a service class where we want to have business logic, let's say. So let's just remove the SFTP stuff out of this. Let's take a look. How can we do this? So we have this here is SFTP logic, and in here we also have SFTP logic. This is SFTP, SFTP, SFTP. All right, this is reading the file. Right, so the output of the file seems to be a map. This map. So I guess the whole point of this processing is to get this map. So we can extract all of that into its own thing, right? So maybe let's put all this. Right, so I'm going to be cheating here because I have already done this, and it's really simple because it's just basically I'm going to extract all this. Sorry, right here. So if we put this here, then we can basically extract all of this here into its own class. And I already have that class. So I'm going to show you how that looks like. So you see all this thing? I'm going to remove it. And also the connection things, the connection configuration for the SFTP, right? I'm going to remove all that. So this is all for the SFTP server. I'm going to be removing all of this. Removing all of this here. Removing these unused parameters. All right. And I'm going to be removing so this SFTP logic here, all of this, we are going to remove it. And I'm going to be adding a class here that I already have. And you will see this class is called the SFTP Consumer Transaction File Reader, right? And you see it has the same things that we extracted. So we extracted this from our service, and the output is this map that we were talking about. So this is what we wanted, right? And we can definitely see something there, right? So remember the domain-driven design principles? I would say this is not very intuitive. What is it returning really? What is this map? Is it what is it really? Is it a nothing? It doesn't say anything about the business here. We could really create a new structure that would represent better the business. But for now, we'll just leave it like that. We don't want to do everything at once because otherwise we'll have a problem. Right. So we have all this, right? So all the code that goes to the SFTP server, that we don't want to mess with it because it's really heavy. At least for now, we just want to keep it into its own thing. We could improve it, definitely. There are things that we can improve. For example, in here, we could, instead of using a while loop, we could definitely use something more like modern, like reader dot what is it called, lines, right? And that will give you all the lines as a stream. and then we can even transform them. So I'll leave it up to you. You can go on with that. But for now, this we'll leave it as it is. This is what we extracted. And because we extracted that, we'll have to also remove this finally part because we're not using it anymore. And these exceptions right here, because these exceptions were all extracted and are now part of this service. So we have it here. We still have this catch and we have this finally. So we extracted everything that was supposed to be SFTP related and put it into its own class. Now we're missing this thing, right? So we can, for example, we could send it as a parameter, or we could add the SFTP file reader here. I mean, this is up to you. I'm going to be sending this as a parameter because I think this service is going to be more business oriented, and the thing could, as we said, the thing could come from REST, it could come from the SFTP. So I would say let's send it as a parameter. So the input was a map of long integer, and it was called points per user. So this is the output of our SFTP file reader, right? So in theory, this represents the points that a user has been rewarded because of their transactions. So we're going to, we have the points here, we have everything. Everything seems to be fine. And there are problems because in our test, now we need to use our new class, right? We need to say SFTP, right? New SFTP. And we are going to send the username that we already have there, password, port, and host. And put this into a variable. Let's just call it file reader. So now we can call file reader, and we can say read customer transaction file, right? And in here we'll get the user points per user. Okay. So these points per user, we'll put it here. So we send it as a parameter, and now nothing has changed. It's just moving logic around. So I'm going to replicate this in our tests that are failing because they are not compiling, right? This thing is not compiling anywhere. And what else do we have? There are some problems. Right. So the loyalty service, we need to remove these parameters that are not there anymore. Now it has only a connection string, which will soon go away as well. And the same here. Every test we need to fix. Right. And we have this test right here. So far we haven't touched any business logic, so that's why I'm not messing with the different scenarios. But as you can see, these scenarios basically are the user doesn't have points in the database, so we create a new record for the user. The second scenario is there hasn't been enough time for the user to redeem its rewards. And finally, enough time has passed. So in this case, the user sends 10 and they already had in the database, they had 140, which we are inserting in the database prior to calling our process. So this is the setup of the scenario. All this is the setup of the scenario. And then when we call our process, because the user has reached 150, that means they'll get a reward. And also 2 months have passed, right? Because if you see, the date of this is 2 months exactly. So because it's 2 months exactly, the user will get one reward. So we'll get here this reward. And that's what we expect in this scenario. I think everything is fine now. So I'll just run the tests and see what happens. In the meantime, are there any questions, guys, that you have for me? Remember, you can put any questions you have in the chat, and I'll take a look at it. And also, if I missed it, maybe my friends from the Globant team will also let me know that I missed that question. And also, feel free to add any feedback you want as well in the live chat. I mean, if you have liked the different sessions that you had, always remember to share with anyone who is interested in what we do here in Java development. So it's always good to share this knowledge with everyone. All right, so why do the tests take this long to run? Usually you don't want tests to take this long, but these tests are fully integration, and they are running things on Docker. So the whole process that we had here, this is running in my laptop. So this is, and so the SFTP server is being created, and MySQL is being created with the tables, with the actual tables, and all of that, so that we can refactor our application. So ideally, I wouldn't run these tests so heavy all the time. I would run unit tests all the time, and then these tests just to make sure that I didn't break anything. But we had to do it this way because this is the kind of application that we have. It's a legacy application. It doesn't have any unit tests, so I had to create these tests from the top level because I don't even have any unit to test, because unit testing comes from testing a unit of code, but this is just the whole thing, so I cannot test it as a unit. All right, so everything has passed, right? So our refactoring goes really well, and you can already see our service starting to have less and less code. We can remove imports. You can use you can use shortcuts for this. What was the shortcut there? To remove the imports, and we can also format the code, right? But still, I'm not happy with this. Now we could try and get rid of the database stuff, right? And this is not going to be easy because the database code is very intertwined with the code that we have, right? So everything we could separate this part, for example, because this part, it's basically saying, okay, this is where the rewards are created, like where the points are redeemed. So I would say we could put this. So this creates a reward and a point. So if I extract this as a method, let me see if that I can do that. then I should do that with Option Command M for method. And if you are in Windows, it would be Control Alt M. All right, it allows me to do it. And you see it's creating a record. So this record is basically it's an intermediate class that is being created so that I can return two things out of this processing. So I'm going to do that. I like that. I'll just call that reward with customer points. Okay. And now that I have that record, I can call this, for example, redeem points. And let's just go, let's just leave it like that. Result is fine. Okay. So now you see, this is amazing. This is the latest versions of IntelliJ. What it has done is it has this process returns two things. It returns the points and the rewards, and because of that, we had to return an object that has these two things. So, and this can be inlined like that. So now, and the cool thing about that is that even after this, it has replaced everywhere we use the new points with result.new points, and the case of reward, it has replaced it with that as well. And because IntelliJ is becoming really, really smart, the guys at JetBrains are doing magic with refactorings and their intelligence and everything. It's really good. So, all right. So we extracted this part. So this is the main business part, I guess, because in here is where we say, okay, if there are if the user has a lot of points, then redeem the points. In the case they don't, then just do nothing. New points will remain as always, and reward, there will be null reward, right? Because if we look at reward is null. So actually this could be, we could skip one parameter, because this is not really, this is created in here, so we can remove it from here and just put it like that. So right. So if the reward is null, if it wasn't assigned, then it will remain null. Fine. All right. I see a question from Parikshit, my good friend. How are you doing? So it says, how do you decide what to put in a class to follow single responsibility? For example, here you have added connection and creation map in single class. Right. So I would say the first part that I did, I removed everything that has to do with reading the SFTP file outside of this, right? So now this is all related to SFTP. And the output of reading the SFTP is generating this map right here. So as of now, this seems very like the only responsibility this has. But I get the point might be that maybe I can reuse SFTP related stuff to read any kind of file. And that is a good point. So we're not quite there. So if we wanted to move this into if we want to move this even further, I would put everything related to SFTP connection in one class, and then the actual mapping of the file into a separate class, and that would be very well. That would be very good, and that is a great suggestion from Parikshit, who is a dear friend of mine, and we work together in many projects. All right, so where were we? Right, so yeah, we were extracting this here. We extracted this there, so this should work because this was done as an automatic refactoring, so we don't really need to test that, but I could. Now the next thing, okay, so here we are adding points. So this is where we add the new points that we had in the database. So we see that we're getting the data from the database and we're putting it all into variables. So I guess we should have our own model instead of having these loose variables rambling around our code. We should really have our model. So I have model classes here, and I have this class customer points. So I'm going to replace all these with the customer points, right? So I could create here new customer points, and the first is the ID. The second one is the what else? Points. So these points are let's just put the customer ID in here. Like that. And let's remove this one here. So now we have the customer ID, we have this. So points is actually, you know what? This should be here. And then we will have this part is going to be going up down here. So points, right? And then this is the date created, and finally we have the valid date. So why here? Customer. Oh, this is not the right one. This should be RESTful set long customer ID, and then no, sorry again. This should be ID, and then we'll have here the customer ID, and is that all? Yep. So remove this, remove that, and we'll put this into a variable. So we have the customer points, right? And then now with the customer points, we can operate. And look at this. We can instead of having all these parameters, we can use customer points here. And we'll change this. We'll change it here. This will be think that date. I removed it. I removed that date somewhere. Let me just look at that. Yeah, that was it. Right, so, right. So this is the points. And what we want to do is we want to get the points, the new points, let's say, for this. So the new points would be the points that the customer got from the file, right? Those are the new points, and the old points are the ones that are in the database. So here we're going to be moving this, and we could with these points we could say customer points, and so using the technique of domain-driven design, I would add new methods here to this object, and I would add these new points, right? Because this is a record, it's going to return that, and so we're going to say new customer points, and it's going to be ID point. Well, let's just say this ID, this points plus points, this they created this customer ID, right? Because this is a record, this is immutable, so I'm going to return a new record. That's that, right? And I'm going to call it new customer points, and this is going to be sent in here as a parameter, and this we can actually move it also inside this method. So because this is only used here, I believe, and we can remove this one, and we can remove all this and just say customer points, right? So now everything keeps, we're trimming down the code. This is customer ID, I think. This is, sorry, this is result. New customer points, customer ID, right? Fine. So I'm going to keep changing all this and say points. And we could create a method for this inside points as well, just to see if it is inside a range, right? So instead of having it like this, we could create a method saying, for example, here we can, in customer points, we could say public boolean is in range, right? And we'll send int lower limit int higher limit, and we'll say also, because we're looking inclusive lower, an exclusive hire. So we're going to say inclusive, exclusive, right? And we're basically going to say this. So points, or this the points, this the points, and this will be the limits, so higher and lower. So now we can replace this with customer points is in range you see, and we could also put this into the class, but for now we'll just leave it like that, I think. So they created like that, and in here we're going to say the same thing here, and this is both domain-driven design, solid principles. We're applying everything here. And in here as well, put this here. Whoops. And this thing here, we'll put it here. And here we have to send the customer ID, so that would be like that. Are we missing anything? Right, nothing. And instead of having this, I'm going to say, instead of having reward with points, just return this. I'm going to return the points, the actual customer points object, right? So that we start using more domain language. Instead of having a single integer, I'm going to be using, all right. And what else? So I can simplify this a lot by just saying something like, right. So I could say this. I can actually move, I can do early returns, for example, just to simplify a little bit. And customer points, I'm going to add a method, call it reset. And this will reset it to 0. Or we could call it redeem, right? This will set it to 0. Right? So this will return that. And in here, we're going to set it to 0. Right? And we're going to be doing the same in here and in here. Maybe we can even get away with just having it like that, right? So this looks good. What else? Looks good, right? And this would be points. And I think we have done some progress now. So now I can run it. I will run just one test for now. Or actually, let's just run all of them, just to make sure that we haven't done any problem there. But in the meantime, it's a good time for questions. While we wait for the tests. So let's see. Right. So the next thing that we're going to be removing is the database stuff. That has to go. I mean, we have to use the repository pattern, which is also the guideline for domain-driven design. And we need to look at where are the things going to. So what is this thing? This is how we're getting the customer points from the database, right? Right, yes. And this is for the updates. So this is really bad. So we're preparing the updates as we process the the customer points. So that's really bad, yeah. We need to separate these things. How can we do this? We can maybe. Right. So this is all database stuff. And this is all database stuff. And we have extracted this part here. So maybe we'll start removing. Let's see how the tests are doing. Oh, one of the tests failed. Expected 0. Actual has points. Enough time has passed. All right. So one of the tests has failed. We did something wrong with the business logic. Right? Did I? Oh, I never resetted the. Oh, sorry, that was the problem. Oh, I do need to do this. So I need to reset. I need to redeem these things. Right? And in this case, I'll return the points without. Yeah, that was the problem. But that should be fine now. I can run this test, the one that failed. No, let's just leave it like that. For now, we should be good. All right, so let's get rid of the database stuff. I seriously, I think I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using a series of repositories that I did to extract this code. So I'm copying these repositories right now because I don't want to extract everything from scratch because it will take time, and you know already how I did this for the first episode where I extracted the database stuff, right? So it's not worth it to do it again. But in here, I have created an abstract repository, and this abstract repository will help me with all my queries. And this then I created a customer points repository, which basically it's an implementation of the abstract repository, and it has some specific stuff about the customer, like how to map the customer into a query and that kind of things. Very simple things like this This is all how to map it from the RESTful set into this. And the same with the reward repository. It's just mapping things. So effectively, I could be using these repositories. And also I have all my models implement this, and I can also do long ID, right? So all my models implement this entity class, entity interface, so they can we can set an ID on it, and we can read an ID from it, and this is all done for the repository's sake, right? But you don't have to worry too much about this. This is how I extracted the code, so I can have, for example, we have a find all, so we can use it in our repository, right? We have the final, sorry, not in the repository, in our service. In here, we're doing some sort of find all. So I'm going to be, now I'm going to be adding these repositories in here. So private final customer point repository and private final reward repository, and we're going to get rid of the connection string, because now it's going to be these repositories will abstract us, and I'm going to add this into in here, right? I'm going to remove the repositories from here because I had them on my test classes. All right. So now we have our repositories. We can remove this connection thing. We can remove this as well. This is for generating the query. So basically it was generating the parameters for the query. So we'll remove it. Right. And now we have a huge mess with the database code. So we need to figure out how we can we want to have the database. So we want to call the customer repository, and we're going to do a find all, but we're going to be sending a condition, right? And sorry, yeah, like this. So we're going to get all the customer IDs from our input, and then from that we will get the whole list. So we'll filter, instead of getting everything, we're going to filter by customer ID, right? That's all we're going to do. We're sending a condition to our find all, and this is not the way I would do this in a production code. I could do this in very different ways. Like, for example, I could use Spring Data, but I don't have time to incorporate Spring Data into this because I'm already incorporating other things. So I didn't want to make this a huge thing. Right. So let's keep going fast. Because we're running out of time. And I want to show you how the application will look. So I might really move really fast now, just to show you how this all ends up being. Let me see, what else can I do? Right. So we are getting this. So this is a list of customer points, right? And now we can remove this. All this part of the database, we'll remove all of it. And we have, we'll remove this part because we already have all the customer points. And what we have to do with the customer points now is we'll put them into a map, right? And the reason I'm going to do that is because that will help me process it. So after all this condition, I'm going to put this into a map. So I'm using stream, and then I'm using collect and collectors to map, and this is going to put it into a map, right? And the map is going to be the customer ID, so I can find the customer points by user ID, by customer ID, and the value is going to be the customer point, right? So it's the same. This identity, it basically says I'm using the same value as the value. Fine. This is all good. Then we are going to right. What else are we going to do? We're going to have a function. So do you see this part here? This goes through each customer point. This was going through each customer point and was adding the customer points, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a private method that I already have here. And this private method will go through the customer points and it will you see, this is going to go through or actually we can put it first so I can show you how this is done. But this is what we have to do here. We're going to be saying points per user entry set, because this is a map, right? We're going to stream this map, this entry is set, and for each entry we're going to say entry, and for each entry we're going to be adding the points, right? So we're going to say we're going to get the value from this. So customer point entry dot value, get value, and this is a customer points, right? Wait, no, this is not right. Yeah, we are going to say get customer points, the other map, get entry dot get key. This will give me the customer points, and for this I'm going to just simply say add. Right? So and also I actually need to check if this entry is here. It could be null, right? So I would need to do something like this. Instead of having this code right here, I'm going to have a full-blown lambda, and I would have something like this. where I check if the key is there, then add it. Otherwise, create a new point. And this, I'm going to put it into a different method. And this is the method that I was showing you before called add customer points. So I'm going to put it in the bottom. And I'm going to call it right here, add customer. And the reason the autocomplete is failing me now is because I have messed up big time with the whole code, with the try and all that. So let me see if I can fix it a little bit. All right, this shouldn't be there. Now let's see. Add customer points, right? So this would be the map and the entry, right? So after we do that, we can do another map. And in this case, no, actually, that should be fine for now. So, so now we need to redeem these points, right? So we do have a method called redeem points. And this method takes customer points. And it returns this thing. So this is good. This is what we want. No, it's not. This is a static method. So I need to call it like, how do you call this? I need to just say the service name like that. So now we're calling redeem points like that. And then after we redeem the points, what do we need to do with the points? We need to save it, right? So to save it, we have I'm going to add a private method as well in order to save it. This method saves, and if the reward is not null, it will save the reward as well. You see? So if the reward is not null, it will save both the reward and the customer points. Otherwise, it will only save the points. Save or update the points. Very simple. So I'm going to call this method as well. And what else? So now we need to return rewards, not the both thing, no both things. So to do that, I'm going to say just reward with points, just give me the rewards. And because the reward can be null, I just say filter objects non-null. And then to list. And I think I'm good. Just remove all this crap and say return, and that, and that's it. I removed all the code that was related to database into the repositories, and now I'm using the repositories to say to database and whatever, but essentially I have just business logic here, right? So I could basically and this could be improved in many ways. Like, For example, this save here in the middle, I could extract it out of this altogether. I could move this away and save everything in a different class. But for now, we'll just leave it like this. You can improve this a lot more. This is just a demo, of course. But let's see if we can make this run and everything works fine. Oh, I'm quite scared because it was a big refactoring. How are you liking this refactoring so far? Right, so we need to fix a few things in the tests before we can run them. We can also have a new what is this called? Reward repository. And it also gets this thing. Put this into a variable. And the loyalty service now takes a customer points and a reward repository. So I guess we can copy all this and put and paste it in the different places like that. Let's see what else. In here. I think. What else am I missing? Nothing else. All right, let's run the test. Let's see if everything's compiling now. And in the meantime, now that we have this, we can start creating our REST controller. And to do that, we're going to use Spring Boot, right? So I have already added all the dependencies that we need for Spring Boot. So we have it all here. It's already all there. So I'm going to create a controller package. Just call it controller. And I'm going to call this loyalty points controller. Okay. And also I need to create a Spring Boot application, which I already have, and this is very repetitive code, so I'm going to just paste it. So basically, this is telling Spring Boot how this has to run. You can see this in any Spring guide. This is not new. This is very easy to do. And in here, I'm creating also the repositories as beans, as in the Spring context. I'm not going to explain what the Spring context is for this tutorial, but if you have more questions about it, you can post them, and in due time we'll address those. Right. So this is a REST controller. So I'm going to put that REST controller and request mapping. And let's just call this loyalty. How are our tests going? Oh, not good. Why? So something has failed in our test. Expected one. Here, right, so right, why is this failing? Let me just see what could be wrong with this. The service is here. So what could be wrong with this? In this one, not enough time. Expected was 150. Oh, I think I removed the line where I added the. Oh crap! That's the problem. I think I can fix that quickly. So I removed the line where I was saving. So this is enough time. So this is a problem. It's not a code problem. It's a test problem. This is not enough time. So the one with enough time. Right. The problem is that I deleted the setup of the scenario. This should be when I was moving things around. I deleted this. In here, I'm setting up the scenario to have for the user to already have 140 points, and I deleted that by mistake. And the same happened with the other scenario where the user doesn't have enough points. I deleted the setup where I was they have enough points, but not enough time has passed, so they shouldn't get a reward in that case. So if I run this again, this should run now. But in the meantime, let's just continue creating our controller. This should be very simple. We have our controller, and the controller will have, it will call our service, loyalty points service, and because we're using Spring, we have to put this as a service. So this is going to have the annotation service. So now Spring knows that this is a bean available for anyone who wants to inject it. So now this is being injected in here. It tells me it's being injected. And I can create a method, post mapping, public list reward, and add new points and redeem. Request body, add new points request. So we'll have to create this class, add new points request, which as you may have guessed, I already have. So I'm going to put request. Sorry, not here. And I'm using Lombok for this. And so we can import this thing here. Oh, this is called add points request. So if you can see, the request only has a customer ID and points, which is basically what the file had, right? Remember? So we can use our service. Sorry, we can use our service here, loyalty point service process, and we'll have to build a map just to adapt it. We could say map of point request get customer ID, points request get points, and this would be points per user. That's the language that was being used. Not very happy with the language, because some places we call it customer and other places we call it user. So I think we should stick with customer, right? So now we can use it from REST. And how do I do this? So I think we also need to have a we need to have an application. Where is this? There's Java resources. I think we're missing the applications of properties. Why isn't it not here? It's not there, right? You don't see it, but we'll have to create it. Let me see how I can create it very quickly. But it should be fairly simple to do. I think I can use it from another place. Yep, we'll just grab it from somewhere else. Yeah, this is called shop, and the password was test, right? So if you don't have this, I can quickly send it on the chat. The Globant will send that in the chat, so that you can all have it. But again, so this is going to connect. Oh no, sorry, I don't actually need this. I'm sorry. We don't need this, guys. Sorry about that, because I am actually hard coding for now. Because everything was hard coded, right? So that was my mistake. So I'm hard coding the connection string right now. It's there. So for now we're not extracting that into an applications.properties. So we're fine. All right. So what else? Right. So we had to run MySQL, right? Because we have a MySQL. So I added a Docker compose file in here, and we can use it to run MySQL. So if you don't have the ultimate edition of IntelliJ, you can go to a terminal anywhere, and you can run Docker compose up, and this will run this MySQL instance in your local environment. I won't do it like this because I have the Ultimate Edition, so I like doing it like this, which is easier for me to control then. But now I'm going to start a MySQL on Docker, and then I'm going to start the application and try the application from the REST controller that I created. All right, so MySQL seems to be on, and this Docker compose that I have here, it already creates the database. So you will see, I'm going to connect to the database now. So yeah, I also have a database connector in here. So I can see, for example, the different customers that we have in the database. And we shouldn't have any points because I haven't added any points for now. So now I'm going to be using Postman. So I'm going to use Postman. Where is Postman? I'm going to use Postman and I'm going to call our REST API from Postman. All right, Postman is taking its time. But there are more things that we can do. So one of the things that we want to do with this is, okay, so Postman is coming up now. But one of the things that we want to do with this is we said we wanted to split this into two different processes. The process that redeems the points and the process that creates the rewards. Sorry, the process that adds the points. So here, up until here, the process of adding the points ends. So I could extract this. Very simple now. I could say, for example, how can I name it? I could say add new points, and then this part in here, I could also extract it as redeem points, and I could then create two different endpoints. So I could extract this part. Let me see if I can. I'm going to put this into a variable just to help me with the refactoring. New points. And in here, I'm going to say this. Put this into a different method saying redeem points. Fine. So now I could create two different endpoints. One for adding the points and one for redeeming the points, right? The only thing that I need to make sure is that in my new endpoint for adding the points, for example, I could say public list customer points, right? And I could say add new points to customer, right? And this is kind of what we want. This actually is a process for multiple customers, so we can do it for multiple customers. But yeah, and so in here, what we would do is we would call this guy here. You see, actually, we would need to do something like this. This part here, we could extract it as well to reuse it somehow. Right? And then we would call this thing points per user and that, right? And then we could call this is a stream. So this remember this returns a stream. So I could say for each or map, let's say. I don't I'll just use map for now, but I'm not very happy with using map. And I could say customer points repository save or update. And then finally to list, right? No, customer point repository, like that, right? So now I have my new endpoint. I can put this, I can call this from the controller, and now I have an endpoint that will only add points without redeeming them. You see? So really, really easy. Because now I have all the business logic in here. So I can create new things with the existing logic. And this is all thanks to the refactoring that we made. All right, so MySQL was there. I need to start this application, so I'm going to go here and say, okay, application, start, and we're going to be running this as well. There are questions there. Do you make tutorials in Spanish? So my YouTube channel is in English, but coming up, we'll have the event called Globant Minds. And in this event, I'm going to be speaking in Spanish because it's an event done in Spain. So it's going to be live, I think, in YouTube. But it's a live event, so if you want to sign up, I'm sure that the people from Globant will post now the link in the description. So I think that would be awesome for you to attend. We're going to be discussing new technologies, how AI impacts our jobs and our day-to-day work, how we can incorporate it in our projects. Really, really amazing talks and coding tutorials in Spanish. Right. So the application is running. So I'm going to just add this point. And let's see what happens. All right. So if I go to our database and customer points. Excellent. So we have it. We have changed our SFTP application into a REST API. And now I'm going to put this in an older date, something like this had to be what could I think it has to be exactly 2 months. So that would be really hard to calculate for me at this hour, but it could be maybe. All right, I won't I won't calculate it right now. But if I keep adding points like here, I could add, for example, 100 now. And we should have, so now it has 110, you see? And if I change the customer, I say customer 2 and 150. And there we go. You see? So this is really all that it took. I mean, of course, I had a lot of things already worked up, but it didn't really take me that long even to make that. And if you use Spring, data, for example, for the repositories, it will take you nothing to do that refactoring as well. So, how do you like our new loyalty point service? Let's take a look at it right now. This is the same method that we had, that we couldn't even fit it into the into the screen. And now this is a very, very small method, and it's just say add new points, redeem. So we get the points from the database, add them, redeem them, easy. You see? That's the power of refactoring and using test containers to make sure that everything is fine and there's nothing wrong and that we haven't break anything. Um, it's just really amazing, and uh, and this will help you a lot working with legacy code. Uh, you see also how domain driven this is. This is all domain language. We have points, redeem, reward. Everything is domain driven. So of course this is very fast, but you can keep going and doing more domain driven stuff. So I'll leave that up to you. You can pick the code and do whatever you want with it. It's free to play around. So it's time to finish our stream for today and the last session of this Java Code Camp. It was such a pleasure to participate, to do this for all of you. I have had a blast doing all this. And if you are interested in moving forward in your career and in working with the best professionals that there are in the market, take a look at Globant Careers. Here's a QR code that you can scan, and it will redirect you to the Globant Careers page. You will see there are all the opportunities that we have here at Globant, and you'll get the opportunity to work with amazing people using solving extremely challenging problems and also learning a lot. So I encourage you to take a look at this page and see all the opportunities that we have for you. And also remember about the remember that we have this Globant Minds event, so you can sign up for that. That would be in Spanish. So if you speak Spanish and you're there, you can sign up for that as well. You can sign up to my YouTube channel, my LinkedIn, and so on. And yeah, we also have a feedback form that we would like for all of you, if you can, to fill in, so that we can have some feedback from you and we can learn what things worked, what things didn't work, and what things you liked. But overall, this was a great experience for me, and I'm very happy to have finished this. So if there are no more questions, I will be moving on. And I think, yeah, I think the guys from Globant are posting now different things there in the chat about the different events and all that. So I think that is all for today, guys. Extremely happy to do this, and I'm sure this is not going to be the last one. So if you enjoyed it, give it a like, watch all the videos again, watch the ones on functional programming as well. Those will be extremely beneficial for all of you, and I'll be seeing you in our next Global Minds, all of you who are joining there, or the next future Code Camp. Bye.